Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and a partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country and now the world. We have hosted tours over the last 22 years to Italy, Spain, Oregon, and soon France. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our third season, and our podcast is all about the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture into all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. Sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired with every podcast. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Thanks everyone for all the listens and downloads to our 2023 podcasts, our third season, with well over 100 podcasts now, and we have more in the works, including today's podcast featuring my good friend and fellow lover of all things Italy, tour guide and best-selling author, Corinna Cooke. Stay tuned for that as we go deep into her Italy tours and travel experiences. Meanwhile, I know many of you have seen my post this past week of the new battle Isabel and I are facing, as Isabel was just recently diagnosed with, once again, breast cancer. Round 2. We think we have caught it pretty early and are already getting the necessary scans in process, and her medical and naturopathic team are totally on board and they are on it. So here we go. We both thank all of you for the kind posts, texts, and calls of support, love, and most importantly, prayers for my angel Isabel. We know the power of prayer, and hence why we share the story and get it out there so everyone can be praying. And trust me, the day we did that, we could feel the energy within minutes. It's just unbelievable and overwhelming. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are both staying positive and strong, and our army is fully assembled to fight this battle like we did the last time. So again, thank you. Okay, I also want to give gratitude to those of you that came out to Rogers Garden in Newport Beach, California for my book signing. Thank you to Iconic Magazine for putting that all together. That was fantastic. Renee D., you are a rock star. What a great turnout, and we sold a lot of copies of my design cookbook, Mark Candelaria Homes, which, by the way, is available in bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and on our Candelaria Design website. 178 pages featuring 12 amazing Candelaria Design homes accompanied by 12 of my favorite recipes. Please order your copy today, and if you can write a review, please do. Thanks for all the book purchases, text, and messages from all of you. In terms of traveling and our Candelaria Design tours, we have only one tour this year, which ironically, I guess, worked out for whatever reason, but I'm glad that's all we scheduled this year. And that is our Oregon Willamette Wine and Food Tour, set for this week as we depart on Thursday. I'll be flying solo this time, as Isabel will be getting scans and taking care of things she needs to on this end. I've got a great group going, so couldn't abandon them at this point. So we're going to do it. The show must go on. We look forward to escaping the summer heat for the vineyards of Oregon, so stay tuned, as this will be our 23rd Candelaria Design Tour. We will be doing some live Instagrams, and who knows what else we might have cooking, but whatever it is going to be a blast. Okay, without further ado, we welcome our guest and my fellow lover of Italy, Corinna Cooke. Our guest today is Corinna Cooke. She is the founder of Glam Italia Tours and a best-selling author who is currently working on her 5th book. Originally from New Zealand, Corinna has lived in a variety of places around the world and currently resides in Phoenix, Arizona. So welcome for joining me on a Saturday today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mark.
This is awesome. So we're both Italian tour guides, but I know our tours are quite different, and I can't wait to learn what you do, and we can kind of share some thoughts and get people excited about going to Italy, right?
Yeah, well, I think our tours are different, but they have more similarities
That's
than
what
they
I
have
think.
differences.
Yeah, I agree.
We're pretty aligned on many things.
So real quick, too, 5th book.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. I finished my 1st book. I know how hard it is to do a book. 5 books is incredible.
But it's kind of a passion though. So it doesn't feel like work. It's a huge commitment, and it's at the very beginning. I go through all these like overwhelm, anxiety things, going, "Oh, what am I doing?
Why am I doing this again?"
Then I get into it, and I love it, the process so much.
Yeah.
And it's really enjoyable.
That's
But there's
great.
about 11 books lined up, so hopefully I can just keep chug-a-lugging
You
along.
are a busy lady.
Yeah.
Well, and this is only one part of your life, which we're going to talk about here in a second. You do a lot of things. You kind of have the ADD problem I have, right?
I like being busy. I'm not very good at not doing things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love having time to just hang out at my house and read books and
Yeah, but you're still
do
reading a
that.
book. You're not just sitting there watching TV,
No.
right?
Like, I don't watch reality TV. I watch very little TV, actually. But I like to be busy or mentally busy.
Yeah, you like learning.
Yeah, I love learning.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with masterclass. Like, do you have masterclass?
Oh, yeah, I love all that stuff. Podcast, masterclass, I could go on forever and ever.
Oh, exactly. What a time to be alive.
Yep. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, when you think about that, and I think people forget that because we just merged into where we are today. I mean, really, TV and radio was all there really was.
Exactly. And I think
And magazines, print.
when I first started traveling, you didn't have access to anything. There was no Google. There was
Right.
no internet. There was no...
The yellow pages, that was it.
Yeah, exactly. And now you can have all the information in the world about every crazy thing you can think up. Like I was watching on Masterclass how to make sourdough bread, with a chick from Paris.
Yeah.
And I just feel what an incredible time to be alive when you can access everything. from
Instantly.
your living room instantly at very low cost or no cost, and you can just keep filling up your brain with all
And
these...
it's in real time. It's like that person who made sourdough bread, she might have made it last night and just uploaded that video to Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting.
It is amazing. So you divide your career into 2 chapters. The first chapter is a makeup artist for television, film, and advertising. I think that's how we met, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And the second chapter as tour guide to Italy. I mean, those are 2 really divergent things, but I kind of know how they come together. But why don't you share the first chapter about makeup and how you got into that, because that is your first chapter, correct?
That is the first chapter. So the first chapter was I grew up in New Zealand, and I moved to London and went to makeup school. And I lived in London for 5 years.
How old were you then, roughly?
Oh, I was young. I moved when I was still 20.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. It was so exciting. And working in fashion in this big world capital was so cool, especially coming from a small place like New Zealand.
Right.
And I was backwards and forwards on the continent all the time, and it was just tremendous. And from there, I was going to be moving to New York. I had to choose between New York and Paris if I wanted to stay in fashion. And, the foolishness of youth. It was one of those sliding...
Which is great sometimes, because you would never do those things at our current age. You would go, oh, my God, that's way too risky.
Yeah,
but when you're 20, you go, like...
Yeah.
Throw caution to the wind.
When I was having to choose between Paris and New York, at the time Paris was my favorite city in the world, and I thought if I move to Paris, it's just going to become this place that I live and it'll lose the magic, which was so stupid. So the plan was to go to New York, and I actually wound up in LA. So I feel like sliding doors. What would have happened if I'd made the other choice? What direction would my life have gone? But
we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, it is funny when you think about things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it turns out that moving to Los Angeles for 10 years was phenomenal. And I was living my best life. I was having the time of my life. Being a makeup artist in that time, in that space, was just so exciting.
That's cool.
And I was working with movie stars and rock stars and all kinds of different musicians. And then I got tapped into the international politics realm. So I was working with all these different presidents and prime ministers.
Wow.
And foreign ministers and some. They're such fascinating people.
Yeah.
So it was just a very, very
So it just
exciting
happened
career.
organically too, right? I mean, you didn't sit there when you moved to LA and say, someday I'm going to be doing makeup or working with presidents, and I mean, you had no idea.
No, I had no idea.
It just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just happens. Somebody that I worked with recommended for something else. There was I'm not allowed to say who, but there was a foreign prime minister coming into Los Angeles that needed a supersonic security detail.
Right.
And needed a production crew because there was going to be on the big screen. and needed makeup. And one of my clients knew this person really well and said, "Oh, use Corrina." And so the next thing I had to have a Secret Service check and
and how you were like what in your early 20s?
I was in my mid-20s by
Okay.
then, second half of my 20s.
So the reason I'm asking some of this, my daughter is 21. She moved to LA.
Yeah.
And she's kind of trying to get into, modeling and acting and doing all these things. And it's, it's difficult. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just fall in your lap. So when you did all this stuff, you weren't just sitting around, again, like I said earlier, watching TV, waiting for something to happen. You were out there making things happen.
Yeah, doing my best to make things happen.
Talk about that. How did you do that?
Well, now I look at it, and I don't know if I would have had that kind of gumption at this point in my life.
And that's what I was saying a minute ago. It's like when you're young, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, so I had become a decent-sized name in makeup in London, but when I moved to Los Angeles, I was nobody. So I was starting
start all over again
from zero, and I had no contacts. I had no
small fish
anything.
in a big sea.
Yeah, and so what I would do is I would go out with my portfolio every day.
Yep.
And I'd have sneakers on, and I'd have a shopping bag with a change of shoes, and I would literally walk up to a place, change my shoes, put my sneakers in the shopping bag under a bush outside and hope that no homeless people would come and steal them, walk in and say, "Hi, I'm Corinna. I'm a makeup artist. I'm here from London." And most people would tell me to get lost.
Right.
And I just figured that it's however many no's I need in order to get
it's a numbers game.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to say uncle. Like I'm not somebody that gives up. When I really want something, when I've got
you have to be determined.
I'm going to go for it.
Yep.
And
so Bella, I want you to listen to this, okay? This is right up your alley. So you keep going, Corinne. This is perfect. This is exactly what I needed.
Some crazy things happened because people didn't really do that. And I went into one. It was an agency that rep photographers. And the woman that I spoke to, instead of telling me to get lost, she was like, "Oh, I've got a photographer I think you need to meet." And so she said, "Let me call him." And she called him, and this is before cell phones and everything. And then she came back to me and said, "He wants to meet you at the Greek place for lunch." And I was thinking to myself, "Oh gosh, do I even have enough money to pay for lunch?" I was like really worried. So I went there, I met him, and thank goodness he paid for lunch.
So you didn't have Zelle then, where you could call Dad and he'd Zelle you money, right?
Exactly. Like it was nothing. But I went and met him for lunch, and he said to me, "Look, I don't really have any work that I can give you right now, but I have somebody who I think you would really enjoy and who would really enjoy you." And it was the head of the photography division for Fox Broadcasting.
There you go.
So I wound up going out to have a meeting with her. And at the time, I didn't have a car in Los Angeles. So I had to take 3 buses and then...
Yeah, there was no Uber then.
Oh, no. But I went and met her, and we got along like a house on fire. And the first job she gave me was working with Jerry Seinfeld. And I can't remember if it was the Emmys or the Globes, but getting all the photographic work done for it. And then I was on every show that Fox had doing all their photo work. So when you saw things that were in magazines and interviews with the different actors and stuff. So those were the days of Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place and Party of Five and all these cool shows.
Yeah.
And then because
So you were busy.
Yeah, I got really busy really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then the different actors that I was working with, because they would... So I wasn't working with them on the show, but we would be, say, shooting People magazine.
Right.
And we'd have all this fun. And then they'd be like, "Oh, I have to do such and such a job.
Can you be available?
Will you come and do the makeup?"
Right.
And so I just started
networking that way.
Yeah. And then also when I'd been doing my door knocking time, I went to one production company that did music videos, and the girl at the desk didn't have the heart to tell me just blank, go away.
Yeah.
So she'd be like, "Why don't you come back in 2 weeks?" And so in my Filofax, we used to have a Filofax in those days, a little calendar thing, I'd put 2 weeks, go back there. And then she'd be like, "Oh, no, we don't have anything for you. Why don't you try next month?" And so whatever she said, I put that date in, and I went back.
You were there.
Always.
Like clockwork.
And then it got to the point that I was going there just so much. I'd show up with donuts or I'd show up with muffins or something, and we'd shoot the breeze. And 52 weeks from the first day I walked in there, she said to me, "I've got one for you." And it was a music video. It was a rap video. It was my first time doing a music video. and got along with the director like a house on fire, and we just became a team, and they had me on everything. So for a year, so
Yeah.
52 weeks
52
to
weeks
get
later,
the first job, and then for the next 52 weeks, every week I shot a music video.
That's how it
And then,
works.
yeah, and then you meet the people who work at the record label and the people that work at the PR
Sure.
firms and the people that work at the management firms and the agents and everything. And suddenly they're calling up and going, hey, you work with that moron who's just so difficult. Or guess what? I've got another one for you. Can you come and do Jay Leno?
Right.
Can you come and do David Letterman?
And she's awesome. She's friendly. She's fun. And people are like, yes, please. How soon can you get her
so
here?
suddenly I was out and about everywhere. And so those two things exploded my career.
The
and
whole thing.
It was so much fun.
That's amazing. That's a great story, because I think so many people, especially young people that are just getting started, and again, I reference my daughters, everyone, especially with this instantaneous world we live in, they expect these things to happen overnight, and they just don't.
No, they don't.
No.
But
It looks like it when you look back. You go, oh, that seems so easy. But the work and all the bus rides and the taxis that you had to jump through. It was a lot of work, right?
It was a lot of work. But sometimes you have to stop and think, when you're doing that lot of work and you're getting all those no's, you're actually planting seeds.
I say that all the time. It's seed planting.
Yeah.
And that's the way you got to look at it. It's like, don't worry about the apples you're going to harvest. Focus on how many seeds can I plant today?
Yeah.
Because those apples will come. But you have to plant the seeds first.
You have to plant the seeds. And if you think, if an apple tree,
if you think you're just going to sit there, you just think the apples are going to show up somehow miraculously, it ain't going to happen that way.
Yeah, and of the seeds that you plant, there'll be some that germinate and that go the whole way. There'll be plenty that nothing happens with.
Yeah.
But when you get into your head that it's just a numbers game, and I need X number of no's before I get a yes.
Yep.
And you just play that out, and then instead of being devastated when someone says no, you're like, yes, I'm one step closer.
Right.
Like,
I always tell people a no is a yes that you just haven't worked hard enough for it.
Yeah. So it's I don't know, it's good. It was a very exciting time in my life. I loved it.
That's cool. So from there, how did you end up here in Phoenix?
So got married. His work moved us here. Got divorced, and I wasn't allowed to leave. Huh. And actually, when I got divorced, I was offered a major television show in Los Angeles, which, had I been able to go there, would have been like life.
Who knows?
What
would happen with that?
But instead, I was stuck here and didn't like it at all to start off with. Now I love it. but sometimes when you've built something really big and you've got this big, great life, and then you lose it all, it makes you pivot, rethink, and
reevaluate,
and then you got to go again. You got to build it again. So I was in this single mummydom of poverty for a while there, but I knew one way or another I was going to come back up, and of course that did happen.
Yeah,
but what happened was I was desperate to get back to Italy. And when I'd been living in London, Italy was my thing. Like,
okay,
Italy's
so when you lived in London, you'd go to Italy quite often.
Yeah. I actually would go to Paris more because I did a lot of work in Paris. I had a whole part of my life in Paris. But this love was with Italy. And so when I got divorced, I had my frequent flyer miles. And I said to my best friend who lived in Los Angeles, I was like, look, I've got no money, but I got frequent flyer miles. Should we go and do a trip to Italy? And she's a traveler like me, and she was like, yeah, let's go do it. And so, she had plenty of money to travel. But we did a more budgety kind of trip, and I was getting the free airfares and some other things I was able to write off with miles. And it just reawakened, not reawakened a love of Italy, but a need to be there. And the first time we went over, I used regular guidebooks, and it was incredibly disappointing. I mean, it's never disappointing being in Italy, but it was disappointing that all the things these guidebooks told me I needed to see, when I'd get there, there'd be thousands of tourists.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, that's not what I need.
Go to Disneyland if you want to do that.
Exactly. So then I started thinking, well, I'm going to come back because there's no way I'm not going to come back, and I've got more miles. I can keep this going for a little while. So I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go and do things where there's not all these thousands of people wearing fanny packs and getting in my way. And so I started researching different things to do, and then that became a hobby, like sitting
In itself,
online
yep.
and
Just
planning out different
some
trips
people
to
do it with
Italy.
Zillow. You did it with Italy.
Yeah. And so my friend and I went back again the next year and had like the trip of a lifetime. And then I did it again the following year. And then I had run out of miles and wasn't going to be able to go. So I was completely devastated. And my son had won a scholarship to a music camp. He's a saxophone player.
Mm-hmm.
And so the big chunk of the camp was paid for, but there was still a big chunk that I had to pay to fly him up to North Michigan and everything. And so whatever money I might have been able to put into a trip, I was not going to be able to put into a trip. I
had to use it for that.
Yeah, and always I put my son first. But I have a vision board, and my vision board has this picture of Florence on it, and it says, Corinna goes to Italy every year. And so that thing started working its own magic, and I had this lady reach out to me on Facebook. And she said, I love looking at your pictures when you go to Italy, and I've always wanted to go there. I don't want to do a big bus tour, and I don't want to do a cruise. Right. And my husband doesn't travel. That's not in his set of interests. Yep. And I'm thinking, where on earth is she going with this? And she says to me, but my husband has had this great idea. He said, why don't we pay you to take me?
There you go.
And I was like, oh.
Here's a new angle.
Why don't you? And so that was the first Glam Italia tour. And I planned this trip out for her that would be super fun.
So it was just the two of them?
It was just the two. No, the husband didn't go.
Oh, he didn't go.
It was just her.
Okay.
And I planned out a trip because I was asking her about, well, what is it about my photos that you like? Because I wasn't posting photos of just running around monuments because that's not really my thing. And she was like, well, you're always sitting in some beautiful piazza having coffee, or you're having, an evening drink somewhere and there's a great view, or you're wandering down these little streets.
You're living in Italy. You're not touring Italy.
And so I plotted her out a trip like that, and we went, and it was so fabulous and so fun. She was quite a bit older than me, but she was just all over Facebook. I'm not even sure if Instagram was going at the time.
Yeah, I think this is about the time I've discovered you.
Yeah, somewhere in that group of years.
Yeah, because this is all ringing a bell for me.
Yeah, and so she was nonstop, or every day, posting a million things, because this was her first time out of America.
Wow.
Other than she'd been to Mexico and she'd been to the Caribbean.
Right. So I've experienced that. You've experienced that with people. Isn't it the most wonderful thing to share but share it in the way we want people to see it, not following the red flag guy or the yellow flag guy.
You've curated an experience, and you know that when you come around this next corner, their world is going to explode. And so I always make sure I'm just a little bit in front of them so I can turn around and see their face, and you're just like,
isn't that the best?
Yeah, totally.
That's, for me, what just came to mind is like when you're walking through Siena and you come around that little narrow street and there's the cathedral.
Isn't that just...
And it's just like, you sit there and just go, this doesn't even look real.
And it doesn't matter if you've done it 1,000 times.
It
Time
doesn't.
1,001, you come around that loop and you're just like,
it always gets me.
Goodness.
It's one of my favorite spots. And then there's a bunch of them there, but that one always comes to mind.
Yeah,
and it's like,
totally.
and that's what I love to do. I like to take my travelers because I know, and sometimes I'm not taking them on the normal touristy road. Mm-hmm. I'm taking them through these little fish trails, and they're like, what are you? And then you bring them around that corner from a way that no one else approaches it.
Exactly.
And they're just like, this is amazing.
It's totally amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Well, so she was all over social media with it, and all these other women were saying, well, I want to do that. And they were all reaching out to me going, hey, that thing that you did with that lady, I want to do that.
And what year was this roughly?
2014, maybe,
okay,
13.
That sounds about right.
Somewhere back in there, because I've been doing it for about 10 years.
That's when I found you.
Maybe it was about 13, 14.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it just grew, and it's become its own thing. It doesn't have a website. It has no advertising.
Just word of mouth.
Word of mouth, sold out every year. So
now, how many tours have you done?
I've actually stopped counting. So I'm probably
you
doing
told me a minute ago you did 6 last year?
Yeah, and 6 this year. Next year I probably will only do 4, just because.
And we're lucky if we do 1 a year. we do now 3 tours a year, but only 1 to Italy. Mm-hmm. And ours is a 2-week tour. Yours is a 2-week tour. You told me It's a lot of work from our end to put it
It's
together.
a lot
Now,
of
do you do
work.
it all yourself, or do you have a team, or do you have anybody
No,
that
I
helps
do it
you?
all myself, but in Italy, I have an incredible team.
Yeah,
So
okay.
of guides and drivers
Yeah.
and all my places I take people
Yeah.
to.
So you can tee them
and-
up pretty easily. You just
Yeah,
plug them
so
in.
I've got all of that preset, and
Right.
all of the people that are on my Italy team are fully invested in my clients having the most amazing time of their life.
Yeah.
And they all want my clients to get back on their plane to go home feeling like they understand Italy and they know Italy.
But don't you find that that's Italy in general?
Yeah.
That's the reason I love going there. Everyone I meet has that kind of mindset.
It's wonderful,
They want,
isn't
like,
it?
if you, what I always tell people, what I tell my travelers is, don't be afraid to show appreciation for something. Like if you're eating a pizza or you eat a dinner and you go, oh my God, this is the best pizza in the world, because it probably will be.
Yeah.
Tell them this is the best pizza in the world. Next thing you know, they're going to be bringing you limoncello. They're going to bring you amaro. You might not get out of there for 4 hours if you show even 1 ounce of appreciation. Isn't that true?
It is. And
They
I
love that.
I
you know?
love the Italian sense of community
Yes.
and the value that they attach to other humans and to
Yes.
quality interactions with other humans.
And it's different from Spain. It's different from France.
It is.
I
It's-
think.
I think so, most definitely.
Yeah.
And, I because I'm there so much and I always stay in the same places and I have my neighborhoods that I stay in the big towns. Normally I'm staying in the
sounds familiar.
same apartment.
Yep.
And I have these communities of people that they've been living there for forever and
Yep.
they know me and they know my name and everything, and it's just lovely, and you see them light up and get so happy, and to see me and to say hi and to catch up on what's happened since they saw
They
me 2
become
weeks
family,
ago.
in essence.
They really do, and
Yeah.
you think, well, I'm just one person in a sea of tourists, but they value humans.
Yeah.
And even I was telling somebody the other day in Venice, I don't know if you're familiar with Venice, they have incredible system of trash collection. And what they do is from 6:30 in the morning till 8:30 in the morning, there's a trash barge just down from wherever you are living or staying. And
I have watched this experience.
yeah, so you go and take your trash there, or
Yep.
from 8:30 till 12:30, the trash collectors come and knock on the door and take your trash because they
Right.
can't have trash in Venice. So when you go to the barge, you have to throw your bag over into, the one day it'll be cardboard. Every day is organic,
Different.
so food
Oh,
mess.
gotcha.
But one day there'll be cardboard and paper. The next day it'll be plastics. The next day it'll be glass.
So there's a system.
It's a really good system.
Yep.
So this one time I'm walking up to my trash barge and I'm not good at throwing anything. Like I'd be hopeless in a war. Don't give me a grenade or anything. It'd be a nightmare. But so I'm walking up to the barge and I call out to the guy, hey, it's glass today, right? And he's like, yes, it is. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want to throw it. I'm probably going to do something terrible. So he came out and he's like, here, I'll take it and throw it for you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he sees me the next day and the next day, because I'm there for always a bunch of days. And so after a few days, he's, what's your name? And I'm like, I'm Corinna. And Italians always call me Corey. And so from then on, when I'm coming down to do my trash, and I'm gone for a few months,
Yeah.
and then I come back, and I walk down to drop my trash, and he's like, hey, Corey, ciao, Corey, come stai? And he always gets out of the little that little cabin thing they're in and comes and gets it, remembers that I'm
Yep.
not mad about throwing things. And one of my tour guides that works with me in Venice, we were walking down the street, and my trash barge guy is going past in the barge. He's like, ciao, Corey. And Emanuele says to me, he goes, you're Venetian. He goes, only a Venetian knows their trash guy by name.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so Italy.
Isn't it, though?
Oh, totally. And that's why I love going there. It's just there's always, you always hear about the passionate side of Italy, but it's true. They're very passionate, and it's like, I always call it the dog phenomenon. When your dog sees you, their tail starts wagging and they're all happy. That's Italians.
Yes,
right?
most definitely, most definitely. And I just love the value they attach to humans.
Yeah,
That
and time. Their sense of time is totally different than Americans' sense of. That's the other thing I try to educate my travelers. They go, okay, when we go to dinner, it's not going to be an hour and a half or 2 hours tops. It could be 4 hours, you guys. And they look at me like, what? And you're starting dinner at 9:00? I said, yep. right?
Yep.
They're like, there was no way I'm going to make it. I said,
Yeah, you will.
You will. You'll see. And then they come back the next day. I can't believe I stayed up till 1 o'clock and I had a whole bottle of wine and I feel amazing, you know?
Exactly. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really funny because if you look at the Italian way of eating, it is the polar opposite to what we say here in America.
Yeah.
And, they eat lots of carbs. They start off the day with a cappuccino and a pastry. And, there's pizza and pasta and bread and wine
and
every
gelato
day and gelato. And they eat dinner late at night and then go for a walk and then go to bed. And everything is the opposite of what we say here.
Right.
And yet when you look at them, they're generally quite slender.
Yeah.
You don't see the same obesity.
Yeah.
You don't, they're healthy.
They're out walking around.
Us. Yeah. They outlive us drastically.
Yeah.
I was in this little town in the Maremma, which is one of my new obsessions, last year, and met this fellow called Silvio. He was 94 years old, and I was in this town called Sovana, and he's walking along, and he has these flowers in his hand, and I stopped and talked to him. We wound up sitting down talking for an hour, and he told me he was 94, and he still does his gardening every day. He has an orto where he grows all of his vegetables, and if there's something nice and flowering, he'll bring it into the town center. I mean, it's a teeny tiny little village.
Yeah.
But all the old people, they all still are very, very mobile, living these very active lives. Every day they walk into town, they sit at the bar, and they'll have coffee, they'll have a glass of wine.
That's
they
the key. You
talk,
got to keep moving.
And they keep socializing, and they do all these things. It's just fascinating.
It is. It is the difference.
They're not getting the hip replacements and the knee replacements. And
even though they're doing all this walking and moving around.
Yeah. And it's a lifetime of movement and socialization.
Right.
And, just tremendous.
So another term that you brought up that we were talking about when you first came here today is with your travel, you associate the word sustainability.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
This is one of my big obsessions in life. And it's funny because people would try and talk to me about sustainable travel years ago. And
that can mean a lot of different things.
So in my brain, it immediately made me think they wanted me to drive around in an electric car and eat vegan food, which nothing wrong with electric cars or vegan food, but it's not how I see myself in Italy.
Yeah.
So this piece of my brain would shut down and I'd get out of that conversation and get away as soon as possible. And then I got trapped one day and started actually hearing about sustainable travel and realized that it's actually everything I already do. But I hadn't been doing it consciously.
Right.
It's just the way that I like to travel.
Right.
And so then I came to learn a lot more about sustainable travel and about its opposite, which is mass tourism.
Right.
So the most destructive thing that you can possibly do as somebody going to another country is participate in mass tourism. So that's your big bus tours, and the worst offenders of all are the cruise ships.
Yeah.
So what happens is these corporations, they don't care about your personal experience.
No. It's just a numbers game.
It's
for
a
them.
numbers game. They've got to squish as many people as humanly possible into a condensed space.
As often as possible.
Exactly. Whether it's putting 4,000 people on a cruise ship or whether it's putting, 48 people on a bus tour. And then they take you into the exact same places in these cities around.
Totally systematic.
Yeah. So that's why you get to the Colosseum and there's thousands of people there. That's why you get to the Vatican and there's 25,000 people going through per day.
Right.
And it's not sustainable.
Right.
When you force all these people into this tiny little space, it's not sustainable. You can't keep it going on. It's not good for the place that they're going.
The experience is horrible.
So the experience is horrible.
Yep.
But I always use Venice as an example. So they would have in 5 to 7 cruise ships per day with 4,000 people per ship. So if we work with the model of 5 cruise ships, that's 20,000 people descending on this teeny tiny little place. And cruise ship people and the mass tourism people, they always stay between Rialto and the Bridge of Sighs.
Yep.
And then a little strip of the Strada Nuova. And so those areas are crushed with people. Those bridges, those walkways weren't designed to carry that much weight. And then the mass tourism folks, they're not interested in coming and trying Venetian cuisine.
Right.
They want Olive Garden if they're having Italian food, or they want McDonald's, something that they can recognize. And so what happens is the mom and pop owned restaurants that have been there for forever, making these incredible Venetian
Authentic
dishes,
dishes.
they get moved out. The rents go far too high. There's
Yeah,
not
makes
the,
sense.
the people that live in these towns and cities have to move out because they become not livable. And suddenly we've created a Disneyland. Same happens with coffee. Venice is famous for having the greatest coffee in the world, and Italy is the greatest coffee in the world.
Yep.
And yet the mass tourism people, they have a Starbucks palate. They have a mass market coffee palate.
Yep.
So they attach no value to quality coffee.
Right. They just want familiarity.
Yeah. And so then what happens is these places that have been roasting their own beans and doing their own thing for forever go out of business and are replaced with homogenous.
That's why when we go to Venice, we wander to the edges.
Yeah.
We go to the edges and we go eat where the gondoliers
eat. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's like my clients are like, "Where did you find this place?" I said, "I just followed where those guys went." And it's amazing.
I love it. It's funny because really you can be 5 minutes from the crowd.
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
not
in
far.
Whole
different world.
A whole different world.
Yep.
I love Venice. But I read this really interesting thing the other day because so Venice banned the big cruise ships. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I just read that.
It took years to happen, but thank goodness they did it.
Well, my trick in Venice was always get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., do Venice before 10 a.m., and then from 10 to 5, go to the edges,
go
chill
do
out,
else.
Rest, sleep, let all those tourists do their stupid thing, and then later in the evening after they're all gone, go out again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, with Amsterdam is now putting in a cruise ship ban.
Interesting.
And because the same thing's happening, it's destroying the center of Amsterdam.
Interesting.
It's done the same to Barcelona. It's done the same to Santorini. That's just how that business model works. It destroys everything. But in this article I was reading, the Amsterdam local government was talking about the environmental damage that a cruise ship does. And they were saying that one cruise ship in port, a cruise ship that holds 3,000 people, which is not even one of the big ones.
Right.
Okay. They don't turn the engine off when it's in port. That engine's running the whole time. And for one day, the amount of nitrogen oxide it puts out into the environment is the equivalent of 30,000 big rigs running
big
all
rigs,
day.
not cars, big rigs.
Big rigs.
Holy cow.
So 30,000 big trucks with the engines on, just parked running for the whole day.
Holy cow.
That's the same
Makes
for one
sense.
ship. So I thought, gosh, that's really interesting. But also the other side of sustainable travel is really making sure that every place you go to, every dollar you're spending is landing on the ground there.
Right, staying there.
It's not going out to multinational conglomerates.
Right.
It's not going out to chains or anything. So
Right.
it's a very small mental adjustment, but what it does is it completely changes your experience as a traveler.
Yeah.
And it completely changes the dynamic of the place that you're in.
Yeah.
So I will, on my tours, everything we do is sustainable.
Yeah.
I don't tell them that because people would not
I was
buy
never
'em.
consciously aware of that until you just told me that, but that is what we do. I mean, and it's
exactly
just
what
the
we do.
repulsiveness to the masses. It's like, let's get out to the boonies where it's really Italy.
Yeah.
And that money is staying with those people.
Even within the big cities. Even if I'm in Venice and Rome and Florence.
Like I said, I go to the edges.
Yeah, every dollar spent, I make sure it's landing on the ground there. So
cool.
we eat at places that are family owned, which of course that's where you've got your Italian experience. That's
totally.
If you're not eating in a tourist joint, then you're eating in an Italian owned joint and you're having a fabulous food and fabulous human experience.
Right.
We shop with artisans. Nobody on my tours needs to go to Zara and buy anything. We can go to an owner-operated boutique and find incredible,
amazing stuff.
Incredible things. There's this one place I go to in Tuscany, this little town called Colle Val d'Alsa. And there's a lady there who has this shop, and it has one of those things that looks like a giant bed frame, and it's a, what do you call it, like a weaving loom.
Oh, yeah,
and
looms.
she makes these kind of knit fabrics that are really intricately designed. And when you look at them, you'd think it's come down the runway at Prada or it's Fendi or something. It's phenomenal, and the quality is phenomenal.
So one question I have that I keep wondering, and I've been seeing over the almost 25 years I've been going to Italy, is do you see these crafts and these textiles and ceramics and all the beautiful things that we love? Are they being passed down to generations? I'm starting to see it fither out a little bit.
So here's the thing. Mass tourism kills that stuff.
Interesting.
Absolutely kills it. And it's all made in China gear that comes in.
Yep.
But if you as a traveler make the conscious choice to go into these artisan places and put your money there instead of at the made in China ripoff,
then they're going to want to stay.
You've changed the entire dynamic.
Economics. Yeah, that makes sense.
So this little town, Colle Valdelsa, it's teeny tiny. No one goes there. And I take my groups there, and we'll wander in there, and everyone's wowed at the quality of her stuff. And she doesn't speak English, so I'm translating for her.
That was my next question. Do you speak Italian?
Yeah, I do.
I don't want to distract you here, but did you learn right away, or was it over time?
It's a constant process. And if you'd said to me 5 years ago, do you speak Italian? I'd be like, oh, yeah, I speak it really well. But actually, the more you get into it, the more you realize you don't know. So I can't read your apartment lease and tell you what's going on.
Right.
But I can shoot the breeze with anyone.
That's pretty good.
So I like to say I speak dinner party Italian.
That's all I
can go
need.
to a dinner party where no one speaks English, and I can completely participate.
That's awesome.
And that's
my goal.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But in terms of reading a medical form or a legal form or anything like that.
You don't want to do that anyway.
Yeah,
so how did you do that? Did you just do it by assimilation, or did you use Babbel?
Lots of things. So I do Italian readers. There's these chapter books that you can get where you're reading a chapter and it's something interesting, like a crime novel or something. And then it has all these questions at the end, and you have to do comprehension, and then you go back through and read it again. And so I'll do that kind of thing. I'll watch Italian movies and television, like some of the crime shows and things. Like detective shows, and have the
captions,
the closed captions on.
Yeah,
so
you can see
at some point your brain disappears and stops reading, and
you're just listening.
You're just involved in this show as if you were doing it in your own language.
That's one of my goals.
And then I take various times I've taken classes, I've taken courses.
Yeah.
And
I know there's some groups in town
Italian
here that
music all the time. So I really do as much immersion as I can.
Yeah,
and then I'm there a lot. And
when
I'm there, I speak Italian all day, every day.
Yeah, so it just starts happening.
Yeah, I just dive right into it. And I figure, well, first of all, they're going to know what I'm talking about. And some people will correct me, some people won't. But if I'm participating and just getting in there and doing it, then you lose the nervousness of, oh my gosh, am I saying this right? Because who cares if I'm saying it right or not? But people will help you, and people really appreciate that you're trying. And so they might slow down their language a little bit, or they might say, no,
That's what I found.
Don't say, you wouldn't say it this way, you'd say it that way.
Yeah, if you show just the little ounce of attempting to try, they so love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it works really well.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do. It's just I do my best, But like you said, the more times I go and the longer I stay, I start picking it up.
Yeah.
So I just got to stay
The last part
at
of that
it.
story with the little artisan lady in Colle is that all of my people wind up buying a bunch of stuff because it's at Village Tuscany
and
pricing.
There's a story to it.
And it looks like it's come off some big designer runway.
Right.
And it's unbelievable quality. And yes, there's a story to it. Every time they pull that garment out of their closet, they remember this whole thing and the lady showing them and telling them and everything. But at the same time, although this is not like a massive, expensive purchase to them, it's completely changed her month.
Sure.
These 5 or 6 ladies coming in and all buying one thing or buying 5 things, whatever they buy. Because I'm like, do Christmas shopping while you're here.
Yeah, that's the time.
But it completely turns her entire month on its ear. And every dollar that they've spent hits the ground there. It's paying for all of her life that's happening in this little town. And that's
sustaining that life.
Yeah, it's sustainable travel.
I
and
love
everybody wins.
I love it. So you eventually wrote your first book, Glam Italia?
Yeah, Glam Italia, How to Travel
How to Travel
Italy.
Italy. Tell us about that.
So what happened, and actually the genesis of this book happened just up the street at Mountain Shadows.
Okay.
So I was at a magazine cocktail party, so this is part of my makeup artist life.
Yep.
And I'd just come back from Italy, and a lot of the people that were there, follow me on social media or have an awareness that I do this Italy thing. And several different people came up to me and said, I'd love to do something like that, but I just don't know how to put it all together. And I was like, it's so easy. It's really easy. And then I had one photographer say to me, I really enjoyed my time in Italy, but we were in Verona and had to get a train to Florence, and it was honestly one of the most stressful experiences of my life, and I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't understand anything, and oh God, I wish I'd had you in my pocket to explain it. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, I'm hearing the same stress points, the same questions, the same need of help over and over and over again. So it's not just one person has
these
issues. This is a thing.
Yep.
And I thought maybe I could write a book because I know the answers to their questions.
Yeah.
The things that really are stressing them out about plotting out a trip to Italy and trying to figure out, well, how long do you go for, and where do you stay, and how do you know whether to stay here or whether to stay there? I knew the answers to all those questions.
Yeah.
So I wrote the first book as a guide to how to figure it all out, how you plan your trip, and how to plan your dream trip, not somebody else's dream trip. And then all kinds of help on the ground with things like how do you use the trains.
Sure.
Most people don't realize that Italian food is completely regional. They eat differently in each
North
region.
to south, for sure,
Yeah, what they eat in Venice is completely different than what they eat in Florence, which is different than what they eat in Rome, different than what they eat in, Positano.
Yep.
And so having a guide just to that, like what you need to eat in the different places, which wines, because the wines,
totally
you're
different.
not going to sit in Positano and order a Chianti.
Nope. Or a Barolo.
Yeah, it doesn't go. So there's a guide to that. All kinds of
That's good.
guided things in there. And then the third section of the book is help when things go wrong. What do you do if? Like if you get sick, if you get that. So I put all that together
That's
and I thought,
really
well, that covers everybody's questions, these same set of questions and stress points that I get all the time. Here are the answers, and it's really simple.
I think I'm going to be adding your book to my repertoire for my travelers. Here,
Thank
just
you.
read this, you guys. This will really get you ready.
And
that's
explain
awesome.
some of the cultural things and stuff as well. And it took off and it became a bestseller.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So then book number 2 was Glam Italia, 101 Fabulous Things to Do in Rome. And that was written based on people saying to me, I don't know Rome, I don't really care for Rome. And I'm like, wait, what?
You hear that
It's
all
like,
the time, don't you?
It's the greatest
well, it's
city
because
in
of
the
what you've
world.
been saying, though.
Yeah.
They're seeing only the part that the cruise ships are seeing.
Exactly. I'd say to them, well, where did you go? What did you do? And it's always Colosseum, Vatican, Trevi Fountain, Spanish Steps. So all the places where all the crowds are, where all the pickpockets are, where you have tourist restaurants that are overinflated prices for under-quality food, like just the worst experience. So I thought, well, I can write a book. I'm going to tell people 101 different things that they can do that don't involve those things.
Right.
Where you're still in the historic center for most of them. You can just walk to and from, and where you're going to have experiences that just blow your mind.
Yep.
And, these are places that I would take still do, take my tour travelers. We don't go and do 101 things.
Right.
And it's actually more than 101 in the book. But just giving people options of things to do. And then that became a bestseller. And the feedback I got was, and still continue to get, was astounding. Because I didn't think that, people would write to an author. Like, why would someone want to do that? But
they do, don't they?
They do every single day, and on my social media and on my website, and they get my email, and it's this constant.
That's awesome.
We went to Rome and we did all these things, we
loved it, and this was that's nice. You
and
create
so
a community.
Florence happened next, and then Venice, and then I got a whole lot more lined up.
Well, that's just it about Italy. Don't you find it's pretty much endless?
It's endless.
I mean, you're talking about Sicily earlier. I've never been there. I went the one I really want to go now. I always say it wrong. Puglia.
Oh my gosh!
I want to go to Puglia.
Puglia is to die for.
That's like the new hot spot I'm hearing.
Oh, Puglia is amazing.
That's what everybody says.
And it looks completely different from everywhere else.
Right.
That's another one of my obsessions. Last year I went to, because normally at the end of my June tours, I go to the beach for a week.
Yeah.
And when I was booking my trip, it was still COVID stuff in. So when I was booking the airfares, you were still having to get COVID tested the day before you flew out and blah, blah, blah. So that actually changes the dynamics of where you can go.
How you get to finish,
And I knew I had to be back in Rome the day before to get COVID tested because a lot of the smaller places, they can't give you what you need.
Right.
And, just blah, blah, blah. So the original trip, which had originally I was going to be going to Filicudi, which is another whole story. But the amount of travel involved and being able to get back to Rome in time to get COVID tested
and
so I could get on the plane.
Barring anyone actually test positive.
Yeah. And this was just me alone traveling by myself.
Okay. But how was it when did you do any tours during COVID?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, totally great.
Did you? And you didn't have any issues?
No, totally great.
Yeah.
It was a whole different planet from being here in Arizona during COVID. You could not be more polar opposite. But anyway, so plan A of going to Filicudi got scuttled because I was going to only have like 3 days there by the time I factored in all the stuff. And as it turned out, by the time June rolled around, those COVID restrictions had dropped.
Yeah.
But so instead, I went to Abruzzo, to the coast, to a little town called Vasto, which is, you'd die. You would, my God, Mark, you'd die. But the coast in Abruzzo is fabulous. Italy's got 7,900 kilometers or 4,900
So this is on the
miles.
Adriatic?
On the Adriatic.
No one ever goes there.
Oh, it's fabulous.
No one goes to the Adriatic side of Italy.
Fabulous.
They're all in Positano or Cinque Terre. That's it.
Neither place I would go for a vacation.
Too many people.
I go with my groups because they want to see them.
I know.
But oh my gosh, the Adriatic's incredible.
That's what I
So
imagine.
I do a lot of Adriatic with Puglia and then with Abruzzo. And these are blue flag beaches. They're the cleanest beaches in the world. As far out as you can swim, you can see to the bottom. Just incredible. And I wound up, when I booked it, I thought I was staying in Vasto Marina, but I was actually 13 kilometers further down and in this rinky-dinky little town. And where I should have had a car because the buses are kind of more theoretical.
Theoretical, I like that word.
Theoretical schedules. But it forced me to just stop. And all I did was go to the beach every day, go eat in these fabulous local restaurants where, a full dinner with wine is costing you 10 euros. And it's like the best thing you've ever had.
Yep.
And then the beach culture there, the beach club culture.
Right.
When I would go back the next day, they'd put you in the same chair in the same spot. And so the nanas around me would be like, so where did you go to eat last night? And what did you have? And who was your waiter? And did you have this wine? And did you have that wine? And it was like this little township was getting all involved in my trip.
Yep.
I did a day excursion out to the Tremiti Islands, which was one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
My entire life that's been very well lived. One of the most remarkable, fantastic, incredible days. These islands, my goodness, they're so beautiful, you can't even wrap your head around it.
Wow. See, I haven't even heard of them.
Oh, you die. Huh. Absolutely die.
Yeah, it's endless.
And this boat excursion, the one that I was supposed to go on, something happened. I can't remember. But they're like, no, we've got to put you on a different day. And I'm like, I don't care, whatever, put me on a different day. And they put me on a day where there was 2 groups going on this excursion. There was a group of girls that were getting married. One of them was getting married to the bridal party. They're going out for a day trip. And then there was a group of women about my age who they also live locally. Nobody spoke one word of English apart from the boat captain who knew how to say absolutely yes. And he only knew that because when he asked me if I wanted a glass of Prosecco, I said absolutely yes. And so from there on...
That was his word.
That was his word. But it was... Oh my gosh, Italians being Italians, they couldn't stomach the thought of me sitting there by myself.
Yep.
And I thought, I'm on a boat in Italy on the Adriatic, going out to these islands. Girlfriend's happy. I don't need anything more.
Right.
So I hadn't gone on this trip expecting to make friends. And Italians just have to loop you in. They have to have you a part of everything. And it forced me to really go there and with my language. And it really wasn't until I got home that night that I realized I didn't speak English today. This whole thing.
Day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
And it was fine. But it was so much fun, and there's a group of boats that go out to the islands, and even though you don't know the people on the other boats, the captains do, and everybody becomes friends, and I'm a strong sea swimmer, And one of the women on my boat was as well. But people from other boats who were strong swimmers had eyeballed it. And they'd already be anchored, and we'd come in, and they'd come swimming over and be like, hey, you and you, come with. And
fun.
we'd go off swimming. And a group of them took me out swimming. We're off one of the islands. And I'm thinking, man, I'm getting far out now. I don't know if I'm going to have the steam to get back. And I had that moment of worry. And then I was like, oh, no, all these people would come and help me. Like, I don't even need to worry. The boats will come and get me. And I didn't understand entirely what it was that we were going to see. And they're like, we're going to see Padre Pio. So we go swimming out. And they're like, here. And one of them gives me his mask, and I put it on. And I didn't know what I'm supposed to look at. I'm thinking, is this a cave or something I'm supposed to swim in or what? And I look down, and it's a statue of Padre Pio with his hands up, looking up. And so he's down at the bottom of the water with all these exotic fish swimming around him.
Wow.
And he's angled towards this island called San Nicolo. And he's got his hands up in the air, and he's blessing the island.
Wow.
And it was just this nutty, cool, fun.
That's awesome.
It was really awesome. But so yeah, beach vacations, going to places that
it's endless. It's endless experiences,
visited.
isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And that whole Adriatic coast is fabulous.
Yeah, it's
There's
huge.
the Ionian. So from so the Adriatic goes all the way down to the very bottom of
the heel.
Puglia, the heel of the boot. And then when you get to the very bottom of the heel, now you're in the Ionian Sea.
Yeah.
And that comes around to the tip of the toe of the boot of Calabria.
That's a lot of area.
And then from Calabria coming up the other side, you're in the Tyrrhenian Sea until you get up to the Ligurian Sea. I mean, it's phenomenal. There's endless places
What
to
an
go
amazing country, isn't it?
It is.
So you also have a blog.
Yeah, the blog I haven't been as active on, although I need to be, but it's just time between writing books and...
You're busy.
And doing the tours and everything. It actually just eats up all the time.
Yep.
So I need to be doing more blogging, because as much as there was a thought that blogging was over, it's actually not
it's not over
at all.
No, I enjoy reading your blog. It's just always, I live vicariously through you because I love Italy so much.
You're thinking of my newsletter.
Yeah, well, your newsletter, blog, whatever. Yeah.
So the newsletter comes out once a month, sometimes twice a month.
Okay.
So when we're like now, where I'm doing all the traveling, it's once a month, and then when I get back in October, it'll be twice a month until I head off again.
There you go.
And so the newsletter is ideally about telling people about places they don't know about in Italy, things that are just right there, easy enough to get to, and again, as part of the whole sustainable travel thing, if you know about these other things that you can go see where the crowds aren't at, that are just as easy to access, then you're more likely to...
That's why I enjoy reading it. It opens my eyes to whole other experiences that I'm not even thinking of, aren't even on my radar.
Yeah. Oh, there's just so many great places, and I spend time every year going out discovering. Like, I love getting a rental car and just going.
See where you end up.
See what happens if I turn right.
So when's your next tour?
I head off actually at the end of this month, at the end of August.
Okay.
I arrive there, and then the next tour starts September 1.
Okay.
And I have 3 tours in this loop. So I have my signature tour, which is Rome, Amalfi Coast, Capri, up to Tuscany for 4 days, and then up to Venice for 4 days.
Okay.
And I added in that we go up into the Val d'Obiadene, up to the DOCG Prosecco.
Nice.
Oh,
yes.
my God.
That's so pretty.
fabulous.
We love that part of Italy.
Oh,
that's one of our favorite spots.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yep.
And then my next tour after that is Sicily for 2 weeks. And we're doing Aeolian Islands and Southeast.
How many people do you take on your tour?
5 or 6.
Oh, so it's really pretty small.
I keep them really small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm a one-man band.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to... It's an easier time than having more. If I had a second person with me, then I would be... maybe doing 12 people.
Right.
But
how do you curate the people that are on your tour?
We have an interview process.
Okay, so you don't just let anybody.
No, and they're age specific. So my tours are all women.
Okay.
And I have one set of tours that are for women in their 40s and 50s, and then I have another set of tours that are for women who are 60, 65 plus.
Yeah, what I found in the tours that I've done, it's really important to get the right group of people on a tour.
It is.
Because if you have one oddball, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but one oddball can mess up the whole thing.
Yeah. And, sometimes an oddball can slip through, or someone that's a bit more difficult.
Yep.
So it takes...
some
management skills and people skills and an understanding of a bigger game to keep that all in line.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like 5 or 6, we're good.
Yeah. Well, the most I've had is 22, and that can be very challenging.
I don't know how you did 22. I don't know.
Our average is 16.
Wow, that's so many.
So it's a lot for me to keep track of.
It is. But still, it's small group tour.
Yeah.
And, your tours are sustainable.
Yeah.
Just as mine
definitely.
are. It's totally sustainable travel versus tourism.
Yeah.
And when you have these small groups, you have flexibility.
That's a nice part,
So-
especially in restaurants.
Yeah, in restaurants.
Yeah.
And we might be, maybe I've got a day planned where we're going to go and see all these cool old ruins or go do something like that. And I'm vibing that the group's more of a shopping and wine thing. We can pivot and just go, you know what? Instead of going and seeing these things, would you rather go shopping and go have wine?
Right.
And just boom, do that. Or
Right.
the reverse.
That's a nice part.
I can have, if I've got a small group and I'm vibing that, they're not really into
This, you can
looking for
pivot.
leather and shopping, I'm just going to whip them over and we'll go do this thing
Yeah.
instead. So I love having that flexibility.
That is true.
It's tremendous. And then you get things happen like, I like going to a lot of little rando places that they haven't heard of before. So one of the little towns that we go to that's near Arazzo it's a fantastic town that no one's ever heard of. It's got the most ridiculous museum. Like it blows your mind. You're like, how is this?
Not in a guidebook.
Yeah, unreal.
I know. I tell people that
Absolutely
all the
unreal.
time.
And the museum is built on top of Etruscan ruins. And, I met the mayor because this is a little place and
Yep.
you show up enough times, they're like, who are you? What are you doing? And so last year when I roll into town, he's like, oh, we're going to have a little meeting. So we had a little meeting, did some stuff. And then he said, oh, I've organized for the director of the museum to come and unlock it for you and take it in. They opened the museum for my group of 5.
Wow.
Me plus 5. We get this private guided tour with the director of the museum. And then he's like, do you want to come down and see the Etruscan ruins? So for those of you who are listening, Etruscan is 850 BC to 350 BC. So he turns on the lights, unlocks the doors, down we go, down below ground, and now we're in this Etruscan town.
Wow.
And it just blows your mind.
It does blow your mind.
But when you get away from those main centers, you open up all these opportunities for great things to happen.
No, for sure. Do you meet your travelers there, or do you all meet here in Phoenix and fly over together? Or how do you do it?
No, because I'm normally there ahead
You're already
of
there.
them.
That's what I kind of took from
I
what you're
always
saying.
get there ahead of them.
And they just meet you
because
there.
Italy being Italy, stuff can happen.
Yeah.
So need to get in, make sure everything's good. But no, they all meet when they arrive in Rome.
Gotcha.
So once in a while there'll be, say, a pair of sisters or a couple of friends or something. But in general, my market is women who are traveling on their own.
Right. And you said you have a lot of repeat travelers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because once you've done this one time, it's like
kind
a
of-
drug.
it's
You
like you're in
can't
a
go
club.
back to cruise ship travel. You can't
Yeah.
go back to the mass tourism model. You want more of this.
Direct involvement.
Yeah, authentic. I want to say authentic experience,
Yeah.
but somebody living in a big major city would be like, hey, my life's authentic.
Right.
But it's that getting away from the Disneyland model and getting to where you can have interpersonal connection
Right.
with Italian humans,
Yep.
which is fantastic.
So do you go to Italy often then, right? How many times have you been?
I have no idea. First time I went was 1987.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, you got me beat. First time I was 2000 when first time I went. And then I've gone, I think, 25, 30 times.
yeah, probably more.
Yeah. So do you like traveling anywhere else?
I do, although, so I spent a big chunk of my life traveling to as many countries and as many things as I
Okay.
could see and do. And then I started finding that where my heart was Italy,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted more.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to peel back more layers of that onion. And
That's kind of what Isabel, what we've done, is we go to Spain, we go to France, we go to different, we always want to come back to Italy. It's the
Exactly.
weirdest thing.
I mean, I love Barcelona. I
Oh,
love
we do
being in
too. We
Catalonia.
love
I
Spain. We love
it.
San Sebastian.
San Sebastian.
It's one of my favorite
stop it.
places.
Yeah. But I find that I don't get that desperate pull
Yeah,
to
I don't
be
know what
there
it
as
is.
I do with Italy.
We experience the
And-
same exact thing.
the more I carve out, the more I go and see rando places, the more I need to go and see.
Yeah.
Like one of my friends, I made friends with this lady on social media, and we've become bestest friends. She led the life in London, a business owner, overwhelmed, overworked, overstressed, over everything, overachiever, super successful,
Yep.
and started thinking she was going to die.
Yep.
She couldn't take it anymore. And one of her employees said to her, "You need to go to Italy for a trip to just stop
Just
and
chill."
breathe." And it took
Yep.
a long time to get her to actually be willing to do that. She had a catering business, so it was one of those things where she was always on. But the employee had said, "No, you got to go to this place called Basilicata that I just went to. It's down in the bottom of Italy, and they've got these white and golden sand beaches, and
Wow.
it's amazing." And of course, no one had heard Basilicata. And if you think of the Italian boot, if you think of that
the
between
arch.
the heel and the toe,
Yep.
the arch of the foot, that's Basilicata.
Okay.
So she went down there and basically lay on the beach for a week, ate all that great food, completely unwound, and really fell in love with it. Went back to England and was back in the grind, and just kept thinking, "I've got to get back to Basilicata." Went back again. This happened a few times. She wound up buying a place there. Her first place that she bought, which cost nothing, and she thought it was like a little bolt hole. So if she's going to keep coming there, she's going to have her own place to go to. And then she had this day where she had flown back to the UK. She'd been in this glorious Basilicata, blue sky, sunshine, gorgeous weather. Flew back to that dreary, grey, just ugh.
Yep.
And she was in the taxi from the airport back to her house. And she's like, "I can't do this anymore." Walks into her house, picks up the phone, calls her lawyer, and says, "Sell it all. Sell the business, sell the house.
I'm done.
Sell everything. I'm out of here."
Yep.
And so she moved down to, she lives in this little town called La Rabatana. And it's on the hill, and it was settled by the Arabs in the 800s. And it was
Isn't that
great
crazy?
because they had a great
View.
out over the Ionian. And all the architecture in La Rabatana, you can really see this Arab influence. It looks very different than
The rest of
other
Italy.
places.
Yep.
Lots of really interesting breezeways. You still see some of those kind of minaret shapes.
Interesting.
But it's also has a very medieval Italian look to it. But anyway, after a while of being there, she found a 1,000-year-old house that was falling to pieces. Half the roof was fallen in, all the rest of it. Bought it for basically nothing, and has redone it. It's you, Mark. Oh my God, you would die.
That sounds so cool.
It's so gorgeous, and she's made it into an Airbnb. Plus, she lives there, and she actually has 3 properties down there now.
Nice.
Living her best life. But it's one of those things where you can fall into these little places that, and, after I went the first time, it's become, I feel like it's part of my soul. I love La Rabatana. And it's amazing walking around there. It's largely abandoned.
I got to check that out.
It's so great.
So in terms of travel for people, there's obviously the hotel route, and you just talked about the Airbnb route. Give me your take on all of that.
Okay, so I'm not a hotel person.
Okay.
I do hotels when I've only got I'm overnighting to catch the plane home
quick.
kind of thing. I like doing the vacation rental or renting a villa or staying on an agriturismo or in Puglia, I stay on a masseria, because it forces you to interact with local humans.
Right.
So when you're staying in a hotel, everyone's paid to be nice to you.
Right.
They don't really care.
Yeah.
And
you're in Disneyland again.
yeah, they're paid to be nice to you. They're paid to give a certain level of service and all the rest of it. When you're staying in some form of vacation rental, especially the self-catering models, you're going to go to local markets and buy things.
Right.
You're going to, it's especially fun if you're out in Tuscany or out in Umbria or whatever, and you go into some little village or town and the local
farmer's
markets there. Yeah, and you're picking up the bits and pieces.
And it's the same vendors for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what you're going to do. You're like, well, what am I supposed to make for dinner? And they'll be like, we'll get this, and you make it like this, and go over there and see my friend Alfredo, and he's going to give you some of this, and da-da-da-da.
The little butcher shops are like amazing.
And then you see them a few weeks later, and they're like, so how were the artichokes?
Don't you love
Did
that?
you enjoy that? They remember it all,
Yeah, and just wait till next week. We got these coming in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love how that model of
Living.
of accommodation
Yeah.
puts you into the real world, the real life,
Yeah.
the real everything.
Couldn't agree more.
And so I only use hotels if I'm doing like a one-nighter on my way out. Or an exception is in Matera, which is, so of the 3 oldest continuously inhabited cities on earth, you have Jericho, Damascus, and Matera.
Wow.
People have been living there for 10,000 years plus. And in Matera, it's built on a hillside going down to a ravine.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of building houses on top, they were digging caves
Into it.
So caves above caves above caves above caves.
Isn't it crazy?
It's phenomenal. And when you
No
go
power
there,
tools.
no, all done by hand, and you
Oh
can
my-
actually see the
chisel
marks.
Yeah,
of
isn't it crazy?
Yeah, but when you go and stay in Matera, you have to stay in a cave hotel.
Wow.
And it's an experience like nothing else on earth. It's, I mean, I like
Oh, no, that
my
sounds
heart's
awesome.
pounding just thinking about it. So like things like that, I will absolutely go stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
Something where when I wake up in the morning, that first second I know exactly where I am in the world.
Yeah.
Whereas I think most hotels, you could be in Des Moines,
Yeah,
or
you
you
don't
could
know.
be in Detroit, or where the heck am I?
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm in this
Yep.
country.
Yep.
So where possible, I try and do that vacation rental model. And with that, again, there's some argument about the sustainability of it when it comes to Airbnbs, but in general, renting a villa, staying on a masseria, staying on agriturismo, and most of the time doing that I call all of them Airbnbs,
Right.
like whatever,
Yeah.
however you're getting that vacation rental. In general, you're going to find that it's a family that owns that place.
Right.
And that this money that you're spending
Just staying there.
is staying right there.
Yeah.
So if I find, like I always do some leading questions with an Airbnb model, and if I can pick that this is actually a conglomerate,
Right.
then I
And,
move
like,
on
yep.
to the next.
Interesting.
And I always rent ones that are owned by humans, like that are,
Yep.
that this is having an impact on someone's life.
Right.
And then I build these massive relationships with them. One of the first ones that I ever used was in San Gimignano, and I went there multiple times, stayed at the same place. They've become very, very close family friends.
That's
they sent their
nice.
son to live with us for a
Well,
while.
that's like us in Umbria. We've been going there for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, I've had clients buy houses on the trips because they like the area so much.
Exactly.
I mean, how cool is that?
It's phenomenal.
And they've been going there for 20 years now.
Yeah, I love
You
it.
know? So
Love it.
that's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. So
Yep.
when people criticize the Airbnb model, I'm always like, well, let's just break it down a little bit and separate off where
The corporation
it is
Airbnbs
the
and the
corporations
local.
and where it's a human.
Yeah.
And I do understand that in a lot of these towns, like in Barcelona, people can't live there. They have to
Right.
live so far
I know,
out
it's
because
crazy.
there's no accommodation, and all the accommodation is overpriced because of
Yep.
the Airbnb model. So I do understand that completely.
Yeah, interesting.
But the place that I rented forever in Venice, she and her husband, they had the second place. They lived in their place. They had this second place that they were able to really, rent it out on the Airbnb model and significantly impact their bottom line,
Nice.
their income. The money was landing
there.
here
Yep.
in Venice. When COVID happened, she wound up having to put it out on a long lease because her property taxes, and this is something that people don't stop and think about, her property taxes on that little apartment, that little one-bedroom apartment, were 5,000 euros per year. So she couldn't just have it.
Right.
And so now it's rented out to locals, but I don't think she's even making any profit on it by the time those taxes are paid.
Crazy.
So,
That's crazy.
it's something to factor in. And
Yep.
also, these Airbnbs, most of them are inside an old palazzo.
Right.
And so what happens if you vacate them and say, we're not going to Airbnb them? It's some hotel group's going to come and buy that
the whole
up, and
thing.
now it's a hotel. So why is it better if it's a hotel versus Bob Smith's making
Yeah.
money?
Well, it's interesting, all the economics that go into all of this.
Yeah.
And how that all shakes things out and really ultimately affects your experience
Yeah.
as a traveler.
I'm fascinated with all of it. And then I think if at every level, like on my tours and on my personal travel, at every level,
Yeah.
I'm looking at that sustainability model,
Yeah.
which by doing that forces me into a situation where I'm interacting with a lot of local people.
Right.
And having
That's
all
a
these
great model.
great experiences. So everybody wins.
Yeah,
the
no, that's
environment
good.
wins. The city wins.
Yep.
I win.
Your travelers win.
My travelers win.
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
exactly.
the experiences that we get.
So how do people get a hold of you? Give us your connection.
So my website is CorinnaCooke.com.
Okay.
It has all of my socials on it. And you can
Love following your socials. They're so much fun.
Thank you. You can jump on there's a newsletter
Yep.
tab, all of that on the website. And that's really the best place to go for where things come up.
Great.
Of socials, I'm most active on Instagram.
Yep.
And especially when I'm traveling, I'm putting up Instagram stories all the time.
Right.
And so you can have all kinds of vicarious experiences.
Which I do.
Thank you. Seeing things even inside the big cities.
Yeah.
Like in the heart of Rome. I'm going to be posting stories from all these rando cool rooftop bars that
There
we
you
go
go. That's
to.
fun.
These really incredible.
Do you ever do it with live Instagrams?
I don't, only because I'm normally
Busy.
either I'm either with one of my tour groups
Right.
or I'm hanging out with my Rome-based friends
Yep.
who I only get to see for this little bit of time, and we're always just talking.
Right.
And I love getting into a lot of these different neighborhoods. There was one that I met one of my Rome-based friends for aperitivo back in June, and we were in San Giovanni, so just a little bit beyond the Colosseum,
Yep.
and kind of to the right. Gorgeous, and it's just neighborhood, zero tourism, zero anything. And sitting there on a Friday evening in the piazza, having wine, and we had pizza, and Roman life happening all around
you.
us, and you're just like, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I should have actually put that up into Instagram stories, but I was so caught up in the moment that.
That's the bottom line here is when you go to these places, when you go to Italy, get off the beaten path for sure. And it doesn't take much to get off of it.
Inside the big cities, and
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have to go far.
That's exactly right.
We're
Few
talking
blocks.
2 blocks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then my books are exclusively on Amazon worldwide. They're in paperback and also in ebook form. So wherever you are in the world listening to this, you can always
Check it out.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
all 4 of them are bestsellers.
Awesome.
So,
That's congratulations. Are you doing any makeup still?
only bits and pieces
Yeah.
here and there. So clients that I've had for a long time,
Yeah.
who are just really great to be around. Like I
Right.
have,
You can pick and choose.
yeah.
You're not right. You're not hopping the bus after this podcast.
No. I won't do any more makeup work probably until maybe November. But I just shot a 4-day ad campaign a couple of weeks ago. So I'll do things like that are just fun, and so I'm only doing it for the love of it when I feel like it versus using
everything
that
that you're doing is for the love of it.
Well, everything I'm doing is for the love of it.
That's what I sense.
And the books pay my life. The royalties on the books pay for everything. So everything else is
for you.
gravy.
That's so good.
It's
great story.
Well, thank you.
I think, and it was great having you back here. I know you've been to some dinners here that we've had back in the past.
Yes.
So we'll have to reconnect and maybe we'll do a ravioli party. How's that sound?
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible.
So let's do it. Well, thank you so much, Corinna.
And thank you for having me.
This was awesome. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Corinna, for this wonderful podcast. You have me so fired up about returning to Italy soon, and Puglia is at the top of my list now. So, and it has been, but now it definitely is. Check out our story notes for the links to all her content. Check out her books. Check out her newsletter. You will not be disappointed. Okay, we have some great podcasts coming to you in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned. We are excited to head out to Oregon for our 23rd Candelaria Design Tour this Thursday, so stay tuned and give us a follow. Thanks for your continued listening. Thank you also for the ratings and reviews. Please give us a rating and review, as it really helps promote our podcast. Let me know that you did, and you might just get a signed copy of my book. Okay, we do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes, our book, our homes, and our tours. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, try and stay cool, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. And thank you for all the prayers for my Isabel. Thanks for the listen, and we look forward to connecting again real soon. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team, along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria design office expansion. You will have to check out online our video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with and dined with and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.